Welcome to State Law Exposed, where real people, real laws, and real money collide. Every story you're about to hear happened right here in Florida, under real statutes, in real courtrooms, with real consequences. These are the laws that insurance companies, landlords, and corporate defendants pray you never Google. If you've ever felt outgunned, outlawyered, or just plain cheated, you're exactly where you need to be. Hit subscribe right now, because the next story might be yours. This is State Law Exposed. 3 people, 3 storms, 3 insurance companies that thought they'd already won. A Tampa homeowner got a $2,000 check for a $20,000 roof. An Orlando renter asked her landlord about flooding. He said great drainage. She lost $14,000 before she'd even unpacked. A Fort Lauderdale accident victim spent 9 months negotiating with an insurer. Then an attorney told him something that stopped him cold. All 3 were counting on a system that had already moved on without them. All 3 found the truth. Stay until story 3, because what Florida did to injury deadlines in 2023 is still catching victims off guard right now. This is Fortune Files, and we're just getting started. David and his wife had lived in their Tampa home for 22 years, paying their insurance premium every single month without fail. Then Hurricane Milton swept through in 2024 and destroyed their roof. 3 independent contractors assessed the damage between $19,500 and $21,000. The insurance company sent its own adjuster. 2 weeks later, a check arrived for $2,000, the rest attributed to deferred maintenance and pre-existing wear. David had watched the storm tear shingles off his roof with his own eyes. There was nothing pre-existing about what he had seen, but the check was real, the roof was real, and the gap between them was $18,000 he did not have. His neighbor told him to accept it and move on. His brother-in-law said call a public adjuster. His daughter said call a lawyer. David spent 2 weeks researching on his own, and every search returned the same answer. Insurance companies almost always win. He found forum after forum of homeowners who had fought and lost. He found the word denied more times than he could count. He was beginning to think the $2,000 was all he would ever see. What David didn't know, what most Florida homeowners never know, is that Florida law had built him a weapon. He just needed someone to show him how to use it. Florida Statute 627.70132 requires a hurricane damage claim within 1 year of loss. David had acted within that window. Florida Statute 627.7142, the Homeowner Claims Bill of Rights, requires an insurer to acknowledge a claim within 7 days and issue a coverage decision within 90 days. But the most powerful tool was Florida Statute 624.155, the Bad Faith Statute, which allows a policyholder to file a civil remedy notice when an insurer fails to settle in good faith. The CRN gives the insurer 60 days to cure. A $2,000 offer on a documented $20,000 loss from an adjuster who spent under 45 minutes on-site opened that door wide. David's attorney filed the civil remedy notice, attached all 3 contractor reports, and documented the adjuster's cursory visit. The insurer, facing bad faith litigation that can produce damages exceeding policy limits, revisited the claim entirely. Settlement: $19,200 plus $3,400 in supplemental living expenses. The lesson: you have a homeowner claims bill of rights, a 90-day deadline the insurer must meet, and when they lowball you, the civil remedy notice is your weapon. File it in time, with documentation. Do not accept the first check as the final answer. Up next, what happens when your landlord knew the floor would flood and said nothing? Carmen moved to Orlando in August 2025 for a new job. She signed a 1-year lease on a ground-floor apartment near a retention pond and asked the landlord about flooding. He said great drainage. In October, a heavy rain event, not even a named storm, sent 8 inches of water across her floor. She lost furniture, clothing, electronics, and a handmade rug her grandmother had given her. Total loss approximately $14,000. The landlord said he had no obligation beyond the lease terms, and the lease had a standard tenant assumes all risk clause. Her renter's insurance covered some of the loss, but not the 3 weeks she spent in a hotel. Talking to a neighbor, Carmen learned the ground floor had flooded in 2022, 2023, and twice in 2024. The landlord had known, filed insurance claims, and never told her. Florida Senate Bill 948, effective October 1, 2025, now Florida Statute 83.512, changed everything. Any landlord renting on a lease of 1 year or longer must provide a written flood disclosure before signing, covering prior flood damage, any insurance claims filed, and any federal disaster assistance received. If a landlord fails to disclose and the tenant suffers flood damage, the tenant has the right to terminate the lease and receive a refund of prepaid rent for the unused portion. Carmen's attorney established that the landlord had received a FEMA payment after the 2023 flood and filed 2 private insurance claims, none of it disclosed. Written notice of the violation was sent, the right to terminate was invoked, and a refund of 8 months of prepaid rent totaling $10,400 plus hotel costs was demanded. Settlement: $9,800, lease terminated. Carmen also filed a complaint with the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. The lesson: before signing any annual Florida lease, demand the flood disclosure form in writing. If it is not provided, you have leverage before you unpack a single box. The last story is different, because in this one, the law itself is the trap. Marcus was rear-ended on I-95 near Fort Lauderdale in May 2024. His vehicle was totaled. He was diagnosed with a cervical strain and completed 4 months of physical therapy. He then spent 9 months negotiating with insurance company on his own, while they kept saying they were reviewing the file. By March 2026, when he finally called an attorney, he was told something that stopped him cold. Under Florida's HB 837 tort reform signed in March 2023, the statute of limitations for personal injury claims, including car accidents, was cut from 4 years to 2 years from the date of injury. Marcus's deadline was May 2026. He had 8 weeks left. If Marcus had waited 2 more months or accepted the low offer, he would have been permanently barred from filing suit, regardless of fault or injury severity. HB 837 applies to all accidents on or after March 24, 2023. The law also shifted Florida to modified comparative negligence. If a plaintiff is found more than 50% at fault, they are completely barred from any recovery. Insurance companies now aggressively push for higher plaintiff fault percentages to trigger that bar, making early legal representation, before recorded statements are given and before evidence disappears, more critical than it has ever been in Florida history. Marcus filed within his window. The stall tactics that had consumed 9 months evaporated once depositions were scheduled. Settlement: $87,000, filed within the 2-year window. The lesson in one sentence: if you are injured in Florida on or after March 24, 2023, you have 2 years, not 4, and the clock started the day it happened. Call an attorney before giving any recorded statement to an insurer. 3 stories, 3 legal mechanisms, 1 through line. Florida law gives victims powerful tools that are time-limited and only work if you know they exist and act before the window closes. 3 impossible situations. 3 outcomes that changed everything. Not because they were lucky or rich, because they found someone who knew the law and used it. That knowledge is power, and power should never be kept secret. If this episode changed how you see the system, hit that like button right now. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life you might change. Subscribe if you haven't yet. New stories drop every week. Real law, real stakes, real people. Until next time, stay informed, stay protected, and never let them tell you the law isn't on your side. This is State Law Exposed.